So I'm on the elevator right now and I just finished my SPIs and the results are right here. I passed! So recently I just took my SPI board exam, and if you don't know what the SPI is, it stands for Sonography Principles and Instrumentation. It's basically a board exam that tests your knowledge on how you utilize your ultrasound machine, and you need to be able to understand how the sound beam works. Sound waves travel differently in different tissues, and you need to be able to work with these sound beams in the most safest way for your patients. The SPI is a mandatory board exam that you need to take in order to be a certified sonographer. What I'm going to go through is my testing experience, what happened when I got there, what it was like, the environment, and also what I used to prepare for my board exam. So basically I registered online, and you print out your ticket, you pick your dates. Once I picked my date, I printed out my ticket. It gives you all the instructions you need to know on what to bring, what not to bring. So when I went to go take my board exam, I actually did a full day of clinicals. Hey, so I'm here at Howard University Hospital. I do have clinicals on the day of my SPI exam, so I'm just sitting here studying out of my Edelman seminar book. I have about an hour or two until I take my exam, and so I'm super nervous. I don't really know what to expect, but all I can do is keep on studying. I did a 8.5 to 10 hours shift at clinicals, I don't quite remember, and then I drove all the way to the testing center, and then I went to go take my board exam. That probably wasn't the best idea because, one, I was super tired and I didn't really study that much that day. So when I went into the testing center, I basically just walked in. It was very quiet. They gave me a locker to lock up my stuff. I went up to the counter, and then they would take a picture of you, which, by the way, is like a freaking mugshot. Like, I don't know if you can see, but like they take like a freaking mugshot of you, and then afterwards they make you do fingerprints. So what you do is they have this little electronic hand scanner. You stick your hand on there, they scan your whole hand, they scan all your fingers, and I guess this just shows to prove like this is you if for some reason you needed to leave the testing room for a second. It was kind of scary. It kind of felt like I was going to jail. So once I actually went in to start the test, it was basically just like a computer lab, and they set me all up. I just had like a whiteboard if I needed to write down notes. So what the board exam includes is multiple choice questions, and I guess they recently started doing this thing called SIC questions. I think it stands for SemiInteractive Control Questions. So the multiple choice is basically just, you get 4 options, you answer the question. They do a lot of distracting answers, so you need to be mindful of that. You need to definitely read your question very carefully. Once you start getting into ultrasound physics, a lot of words have synonyms. They will easily change up a question. It could be the exact same question, but then just change up one word, and then it'll confuse you. So what the semi-interactive questions were, it was basically like an online interactive ultrasound machine. For example, it would have like a still image, it would be a still 2D image, and it would have some type of error within the image. And then on the bottom of the screen, it would be like a real life soft key machine for ultrasound. And it would have like your TGCs, your gain control. Your job is to basically change one thing on the machine in order to correct that still image. The trick with these questions is, even though you click the button, it physically doesn't change what the image above looks like. You basically need to use your imagination. My personal advice with doing these SIC questions is that they only give you 5 controls that you could change. Only change 1 control on your machine. Let's say you get like one part of the question right, but then your second control that you changed like completely counteracted it, then you get the whole question wrong. To me personally, what my exam mostly consisted of, in my opinion, everybody's exam is different, so don't just depend on what I'm about to say. I felt like my exam consisted a lot on Doppler and aliasing. I had a lot of questions on how to correct aliasing, what to do when you have aliasing, what causes aliasing. I had a lot of questions on like Doppler shifts, how does Doppler work. One thing that I want to emphasize with the SPI board exam is that it's not track based, and what I mean by that is that even though I am in the general track, which means that I am certified or will be certified to scan abdominal ultrasounds, OBGYN ultrasounds. People who are in ultrasound, their track could be specifically echocardiography, or it could be vascular. Let's say you only scan hearts and then you see a liver up there and then you don't know what to do, but the question will be like, oh, it's a really bright image of a liver, what can you do to fix it? So when you are done with your exam, you'll submit it, and right after you go out and they will give you your score. They basically print out your score in a little piece of paper, they fold it up and they hand it to you, and then you go grab your stuff and you leave. So basically you open it up and it looks like this. They show you your mugshot picture. So the top sheet basically gives you your results, and then the second sheet, it gives you your score detail. I don't quite understand how they score you. Scale scores range from 300 to 700. A minimum scaled score of 555 is required to pass the exam. I guess the highest score that you could get is a 700, and you have to pass with a 555. And my score was a 642, if you were curious. So the content area, or the topics that they go over in the ultrasound exam, is number 1, the clinical safety, patient care, and quality assurance. That's basically if you know how to use your machine in the safest way possible for your patients. Number 2 is physical principle. Number 3 is ultrasound transducers. They basically ask you questions about different types of ultrasound transducers. Number 4 is imaging principles and instrumentation, and that's basically how you are able to fix an image and make it pretty. It basically shows that you are knowledgeable in being able to make your image plausible or diagnostic. And the 5th content area that they go over in the exam is Doppler imaging concepts. I felt like my exam mostly was on Doppler, but you know, everybody else could be different. So right next to each content area, it'll tell you an evaluation on it, and it basically tells you what is satisfactory or it needs to work more on. So I have 2 of them that says may require further study, but you know what? I passed and everything else was satisfactory. So now I'm gonna go over exactly what I did to prepare for my exam. My holy grail book that I used was the Understanding Ultrasound Physics. This book is written by Sydney Edelman. This book is just great. Each chapter, it gives a really clear definition of what you need to know, and lots of images, and they do a lot of practice questions in here. I have never seen a book that is so clear and thorough. Like, this is practically dummy proof. Like, if you could read, then you can understand everything in this book. It's very clear. So basically what I did, I actually went to Mr. Sydney Edelman's seminar. What he does is he hosts a seminar in like different cities. He like goes on tour and hosts seminars and goes through the entire book with you. So he hosts a lot more seminars besides just ultrasound physics. I actually drove down to Pittsburgh to do this seminar. Pittsburgh is generally like 4 hours away from me, but it was the closest one that I could get to in the time that I had to take my board exam. So me and a couple of my friends took a road trip down there, and we stayed down there for about like 4 days. The seminar was 3 days in total. So every single day in the morning he would give a lecture for a few hours on everything in the book. He would go through every single chapter. This book has 24 chapters and it's about like 500 pages. He provided us all with a review book. It's basically the exact same thing as this green book, and even though I said this is already dummy proof and simplified and very clear, this one is even a more simplified version of this. So if for some reason you're a dummy and you can't go through this book, this is the same exact thing but just broken down into a cute little review book. A lot of people ask me, is ultrasound physics hard? I honestly don't think it is. It wasn't as traumatizing as I thought it was going to be. You know, usually I'm terrible at math and I'm terrible at science. I was terrible at physics in general. How I feel about ultrasound physics is that it's physics. There's always an answer to everything. one thing always has to connect to another. There's always a relation to one factor that affects another factor. A lot of people going into ultrasound physics, they think it's a bunch of math and numbers and formulas. There are a lot of formulas, but the key thing you need to know about ultrasound physics is you don't need to memorize those formulas. You just need to remember all of the factors within that formula and how they have relationships with each other. The only thing that's math related in ultrasound physics is basically remembering units. For example, like all of our transducers on our ultrasound machine has different frequencies, and the units for frequencies is megahertz or hertz, and that's basically it. Good luck to anybody who's about to take their SPI board exam. I hope this video was very helpful to you, and if you have any questions on how else to prepare or any questions in general about physics, please feel free to comment below. Good luck, everybody!